Failure can be defined as one, a lack of success, or two, a falling short. As a man who's both unemployed and 5'6", I can relate. Ever since I can remember, I've viewed failure as something inherently negative. And after giving it some thought for approximately 1 minute, I think I know why.
Failure used to be something that was dangerous. With every decision that we made, there was this balance of like risk and reward. And back then, the choices that you made had an impact on whether or not you lived or died. Anything that held with it a high degree, a high potential for failure, wasn't worth it for us. So that obviously got like hard-grained inside our evolution, inside our brain. And thousands of years later, you see that manifesting itself in a way that anytime there's a risk in doing something, we fear it. And I think like a huge part of this is the concept of comparison and how it applies to society. Because we see all these celebrities and just people who have made it in our eyes. And all we see about these people are the upward trajectory that brought them to where they are. We see this like manufactured success story from A to B. But I think personally that that's bullshit. About like 90% of people who are successful actually have tons and tons of failures along that path towards that success. But that's not what's shown on social media. We only see the highlights, the parts that people want to show, and it's not always malicious in nature, but I mean, I do this myself. People just tend to want to show the good parts of their lives. We're not going on social media and posting where we're having mental breakdowns about shit, you know? So it makes sense that people only want to share that, but I think that what it creates is a false perception in people who idolize those successful humans. And it really kind of creates a false expectation because you think that failure is not supposed to be part of that process. And so whenever you are faced with failure, it feels like you're not really where you should be.
It may be hard to believe because of how rich and successful I am, but I have quite a bit of experience with failure.
A lot of times we think of failure as like this big moment, this big mistake that you made. And for me, it wasn't like that. It was hundreds, if not thousands, of tiny mistakes and just bad decisions that I've made over time that have added up. Coming out of high school, I was extremely ambitious, probably naive in a way. Uh, I had big dreams and I still do, but at that moment in time, I didn't see anything getting in the way of that. You know, really despite like this false sense of confidence, this false aura of confidence that I tried to exude, I was extremely self-conscious and insecure about myself inside. And it had been building up for years. Like since I moved to where I live and I started junior high at this new school that I didn't know anybody, and then moving into high school, you know, I had friends. It's not like I was like an outcast necessarily, but I felt alone and I didn't accept myself. And I'm still struggling with that. But the thing is that at that point, I had no idea what was happening. Anytime that I would feel bad about myself, anytime that I would have issues, I would avoid it. And I would turn towards something else to distract myself so that I didn't have to look at this dark hole that I felt inside me. If you avoid things for long enough, it doesn't go away. It just burrows itself deeper into your subconscious. The thing about graduating is that when you're in high school, you think about all the things you're gonna do after, like once you have all this free time. But once you do have that free time, you know, all those unhealthy coping mechanisms and those habits, they don't go away. They carry with you. So it just turned into this like loop of negativity and these destructive habits and me digging myself deeper and deeper into a hole. Anytime I would like try to do something to move me out of that hole, I guess a big one was going back to my passions. You know, I had things that I loved doing and then suddenly I didn't love doing them anymore. And I knew what made me happy. Like I knew what had made me happy in the past. I even knew where I wanted to go in life, but anytime that I would try to like move towards that, I would get in my own way. I would self-sabotage. You know, I'm gonna be real, like I wasn't suicidal necessarily, but I didn't want to be alive. I lost hope in my future, and I didn't think that I was ever going to move past the point where I was. It just got to the point where it was like, well, I know that no one is stopping me from changing my life. I'm the only one in my way. But if I can't choose to move forward, then what's gonna happen? No one is coming to save me. And I think it's funny because at that period, that statement, no one's coming to save me, was something completely demoralizing. But now, that's actually kind of a phrase to give me strength. No one's gonna save me, which means I gotta save myself.
When looking back in hindsight at that dark period of my life, I can identify 3 specific pitfalls that were blocking my path towards success.
With all that I've learned about the mindset that was kind of keeping me where I was, I think one of the big things is this concept that I like to call ego lifting. Someone tries to do something that's either too heavy or just too hard for where they're at the moment, and they end up doing it with bad form, which in turn leads to injury or looking stupid.
There you go. Go, Matt. Go, Matt. There you go, Matt.
And what that starts with is motivation. You see an area in your life in which you think you could be doing better. We'll say we're gonna start going to the gym, so we go. We go the first time, we go to the gym. The thing that happens is that our ego gets in the way. And suddenly going to the gym once is not enough. Now you gotta start going to the gym every day. And the thing about that is that if you could go to the gym every day, you would have started already. The second you expect more of yourself than you're actually capable of, you're doing yourself to failure. It really stems from this feeling of inadequacy that you have about yourself. It comes from this wanting to like make up for lost time. When I graduated, I thought that it would only be like a matter of a couple years before I blew up off my music. And what that produced in me mentally was a lot of this feeling and thoughts about like, you should have been here so long ago. Like you should, why are you not making music? You should have been making music for the past 4 years. And so when I actually started writing, if I could start writing for a couple days, it would be fun and I would enjoy it. But then my ego gets in the way and I start to think about like, okay, well, instead of just writing for a bit each day, why aren't you writing for hours like your favorite rappers did? And it just starts to become this competition with other people when really the only person you're competing against is yourself. In the gym, ego lifting nearly always leads to injury. And I think it's the same thing with your mentality. If you let this infect the way you view yourself and the way you view your actions and what you're doing, it is only going to lead to failure. Identity is a really loose construct. And I think that our thoughts, the way we think about ourselves, plays into that hugely. The more you fail, the more you start to tell yourself that you're a failure. But the inverse is also true. The more you can win, the more you'll start to think of yourself as a winner.
Fuck yeah, bitch.
If instead of doing something that I'm not ready for, if I try to meet myself where I am, then I can rack up all these wins. If I decide that I'm gonna go to the gym once a week, and I keep doing that, it's a win. And if I don't suddenly say, okay, this isn't enough, I need to start going every day, if I can just stick with that thing that I said I was gonna do, the way you start to think of yourself shifts. And you start to view yourself as someone who can actually commit to the things that you say you're gonna do. Because I've made so many mistakes, you start to have this like expectation about what you're gonna do. And of course, failure is inevitable in life. Y'all see that bird? That was crazy. Failure is inevitable and you're going to fail eventually. But I think anytime that you're starting something, if you do have that expectation, it kind of like leaves space for you to falter in what you're doing. You know, if you tell yourself, I'm probably gonna fail, and that's okay, you know, I'll try again. But if you say, I'm probably gonna fail, then in that moment where it's hard, you wake up and you don't wanna go to the gym, you'll be like, well, I was probably gonna fail anyway, so maybe I should just do it now and get it over with. It's still
Mindfuckery.
I think that what you should do instead of expect is to accept. Just like have it, it's kind of there in the back of your mind. Like, you know that eventually you will make mistakes, but you don't have to expect that. Maybe this is the year I don't fail at all.
Despite all this negativity associated with failure, I think it's misunderstood.
The only thing you're in control of are your actions, your behavior. In everything in life, we can make our best effort towards something, but the outcome of that is not under our control in the slightest. You can give your all to something, and let's say I'm applying for something, I don't know, a fucking job. Like, I can try my best on that resume, I can do whatever, go above and beyond, call them, do all this shit. I don't know much about applying to jobs, I haven't had many, but you can do everything right on your end, and maybe the person just doesn't like you. It has nothing to do with you, it's not personal, but like I said, it's not under your control. If you can really give your all to something, I think at that point, then you can be at peace. If I try my best to make a video and I spend hours color grading that and I edit it and I make it funny, if I try my best and it only gets a couple views, you know, I don't really care because I know that I did the best that I could and I could not have done any better. So there's nothing to be ashamed about. And honestly, all my videos only get a couple views, so. When you can accept failure, I think you can also kind of be there for yourself. You know, at the end of the day, who is the only person that's with us all the time? It's ourselves. If your friend told you that, you know, they failed at something, the way you would treat them is oftentimes a lot different than the way we speak to ourselves.
And that was worst case scenario. Shouldn't do that again.
And so anytime that you do fail, I feel like I'm saying fail so much during this video, which makes sense because of what it's called, but still. Whenever we do fail, we gotta be there for ourselves and be our best support, you know, be there for ourselves and tell ourselves that it's okay to make mistakes, it's okay to falter, and there's always another opportunity ahead. I feel cheesy as fuck making this video. I also think there's just a fallacy about failure in general. It kind of doesn't exist. I mean, it does, but it's like all based on perception. Let's say you're a rock climber and you got this rope on you. You're not gonna fall, but you're scared for some reason. It's like wired within us to be scared. You look down and you see that you're very high up. You know you have a rope on you. You know logically you're not gonna get hurt, but it's still terrifying. And as soon as your hand slips and you fall back, your heart drops. No matter how far you fall from where you want it to be, you can always just at any point choose to get back up. And really, although it's not always easy, and I do think that, like, you know, don't fall into the toxic positivity way of this, but you can view failure as a good thing. Nearly always it's an opportunity. Anytime that I don't meet the bar with something, anytime that I do break that commitment, it's an opportunity to look back and be like, okay, what went wrong? Like, where did my mentality shift to a point where it led to this outcome? What can I do better next time? I think if you want to talk about true failure, what it is really giving up entirely. And that's what I was on the precipice of during that dark period of my life. it wasn't all the tiny, tiny failures that I had. It was taking all of that and letting it cloud my vision of my future and thinking that just because I had strayed from where I wanted to be, that it meant that I no longer had anything to live for. That's the true failure. I mean, part of me is still ashamed to speak about that period of my life. I'm not fully out of it, really, but this is me taking a step forward. I mean, just in general, this is a hard video to make. It was hard to get out here and speak about it. I procrastinated this moment for a couple weeks, and now I'm here, and it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I think that all these mistakes that I've made, and me speaking about them now, can provide insight to other people, and hopefully you don't have to go through the same thing that I did. I mean, there's a million videos on YouTube that are probably better than this, but you know, if someone clicks on this one and they're at a similar point to where I was at, and something in this video can help that person, then I think I count this as a win, not a fail. Ah, my ass hurts, bro.